Good morning, Javier Becerra, Attorney General for the great state of California. Actually, very pleased that today, joined by the great Attorney General from the wonderful state of Washington, Bob Ferguson. Together, we're going to talk about an action that we are co-leading in a coalition of 23 attorneys general to once again battle an unlawful action by the President of the United States. So I'm pleased that the two of us can push this action forward on behalf of so many in this country because it affects everyone in this country. I want to also mention, and I know Bob will as well, that we have a team that has made this work possible. I want to just go through and mention some of the names of the people who on my staff have made today's announcement possible. Jamie Jefferson, who is a Deputy Attorney General, who actually will be available on this call to answer any questions. She has been a part of this action and she will be available. Julia Forgy, also a DAG. Lonnie Mayer, another Deputy Attorney General. Sarah Morrison, a Supervising Deputy Attorney General. David Zanana, who is a Supervising Deputy Attorney General. Ed Ochoa, our Senior Assistant Attorney General, and Arsenio Mataka, a Special Assistant to the Attorney General. This is part of the team that makes these actions possible here at the California Department of Justice, and I wanted to acknowledge them for their great work. In a moment, I'll turn it over to my colleague and friend, Bob Ferguson. But let me just make a few points. Actually, this week has made it pretty clear that this administration is willing to go way beyond the edge when it comes to how it governs, to the point where they go over the cliff and do things that are clearly unlawful, like holding a political campaign event at the White House, using government assets, government property to do political campaigning. If that seems bad, then what we're announcing today should not surprise you, because this is yet another effort by the Trump administration to undermine the foundation of our laws to protect our environment and our human environment health. And so it should surprise no one that today AG Ferguson and I are announcing an action, a lawsuit against the president, his administration, in trying to really break one of the premier protections we have in this country for our environment and moving human health forward, and that is the National Environmental Policy Act, which has been around for decades and has helped make sure that communities throughout the country have a chance to know what kind of federal projects are moving forward. Let's just provide community input into those projects, make sure that we take all the different elements that will have an impact and a consequence in that project into account. And let's just make sure that we all understand where we're heading through our federal government and our taxpayer dollars. The Trump administration is trying to change the way NEPA operates, the National Environmental Policy Act. And while it's been effective for 50 years, that's not enough for Donald Trump. And so here we are having to sue Donald Trump yet again. For California, this represents our 100th lawsuit against this administration. Lawless behavior must be addressed, and now we have seen for the 100th time lawless behavior emanating from the White House and this administration to the point where we have had to sue. Fortunately, when we have sued, we've usually won, and this should not be any different. We believe that this administration has gone beyond in trying to change NEPA. This administration is violating the Administrative Procedure Act in acting arbitrarily and capriciously, inconsistent with the law. And we believe that this lawsuit is critical if we want all communities, especially vulnerable communities that would be in the sights of these federal projects, from having a voice in these federal projects and how their taxpayer dollars are spent on these federal projects. And so we are here to defend our landmark law, the National Environmental Policy Act. We are here to say that the Administrative Procedure Act requires things to be done the right way. Everyone must follow the rules. And we're here to say that it makes no difference to us what Donald Trump says. We're going to make sure that he doesn't violate the law, at least not on our watch. And so here we are. NEPA, since 1969, has been providing us with that protection to make sure projects are done at the federal level for the right reason. We're going to move to try to undo this Trump final rule that has at its heart the gutting of NEPA. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that whether it's climate change, overburdened or underserved communities, whether it's water or air quality, whether it's sensitive and threatened or endangered wildlife, we are there. We're going to make sure we stand up. And so I believe that this is one of those lawsuits that will prove to Donald Trump once again that he is not above the law. And so with that, let me now turn to my friend and colleague from Washington State, the co-lead in this lawsuit, leading those 23 attorneys general, Bob Ferguson. Bob?
Hey, thanks so much, General Becerra. And, as always, just a real pleasure to work with you. Those who are viewing, General Becerra and I have partnered on an awful lot of litigation over the last few years. And just really appreciate you and your whole team. Look, just a couple of thoughts. I think General Becerra summed it up pretty well, but just a couple of things I want to add to that before we take your questions. So, number one, look, most Americans, I suspect, have not heard of NEPA. While they may not have heard of it, it is a foundational environmental law. It's literally been referred to as the Magna Carta of environmental laws. It's that important. And here in Washington State, Javier, we take particular pride in NEPA because the individual who conceived it, wrote it, and pushed it through Congress was a Washington State United States Senator, Henry Scoop Jackson. I have a particular interest in Scoop Jackson. My family grew up in the same town as he did. My son, Xavier Jack, is named after Scoop Jackson. So in the Ferguson household, Scoop Jackson is an important person and to our state, and he was an environmental leader, and this was his law. And so we take a special pride, Javier, in joining you on this lawsuit. So thanks again to you and your team. Look, NEPA requires something basic but very important from the federal government before enacting all sorts of actions that can have a huge impact, as you mentioned, Javier, on communities across our country and in our states. It basically requires the federal government to look before they leap. Pretty straightforward. Look at science. Look at the impacts. What's going to happen if we go forward? That's what Scoop Jackson was driving at. That's what Congress was driving at when that bipartisan law was adopted. What the Trump administration wants to do is put blinders on before the federal government leaps. So we don't know what those impacts are. And just to give you one real-world example of this, General Becerra and I worked on a case together that California led. We were joined by New York and New Mexico, if I recall correctly, Javier. And this was a case that challenged the Trump administration opening up federal lands for coal leasing. And that's a case we won. The basis of our challenge in that case was NEPA. We went to NEPA as our bedrock legal argument before a federal judge in Montana, and we prevailed on that case because, again, the federal government was not looking before they leaped on opening up those federal lands for coal leasing. So, look, I don't think it's a coincidence that after losing in court over and over and over again to California and Washington and a broad coalition of states on environmental cases, that the Trump administration wants to gut one of the key foundational environmental laws that we have. So, look, transparency, science, informed decision-making, a voice for all communities, those are the values embedded in NEPA. And those are the values that the Trump administration is trying to undermine. From my team, as Javier said, we depend on our team so much for these cases. The individual who's on our call here who can help answer questions if they're on the legal side is Aurora Yankee, who leads a team in my office on this case. And just the last thing I'll say is, like California, we have a lot of experience in litigating against this administration. We haven't quite filed 100, but we're close. But we have 32 decisions in the cases we've filed, many of which we joined California. Our record is 31 victories and only 1 defeat, which we're appealing, by the way. And most of those cases are over. There's no more appeals. So to your point, General Becerra, this administration over and over and over again simply refuses to follow the law when they want to enact dramatic changes to our federal laws. And look, it's unfortunate we have to go to court to stop it, but stop it we will. And again, General Becerra, thanks to you and your team. It's always great to work with you, and it's great to see you. And I'm going to turn this back over to you and your team for taking questions. Thanks so much, everybody.